Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today, we're going to make a Christmas project, but we're going to make it all from scraps. So if you're like me, right after Thanksgiving, I hop right into Christmas mode. But there's not that much time. There's only a few more weeks until Christmas. So I don't want to start a big project because I might not get it finished with enough time to give it as a gift or keep it for myself and be able to enjoy it before Christmas gets here. So what I'm going to make is just a small patchwork Christmas tree. And that can be used as a wall hanging, or you can use it like I am on a little end table, and then I can put little Christmas decorations around it. So this is a great project for scraps. Even if you only have just a little bit, you'll still be able to make this because we're going to be cutting some 2-inch squares and some 2 3/8 inch squares. Now I'm going to do this out of all kinds of greens and then all kinds of different light background prints. You don't have to do it in green. You could do it in red. You could do it in brown. You could do it in blue. You just want to have some darker colors and then some lighter colors. So here's my sketch. This is not the finished pattern. We will have all these numbers in the first link right below the video so that it'll be written up nicely for you. But basically, we're going to need 7 squares that are 2 3/8 inches that are light, and 7 that are 2 3/8 that are dark. And these are going to be for the half square triangles that are going to make the points of the tree here. Then we're also going to need some 2-inch squares, quite a few light ones for the background here, and then some dark ones for the tree, and then one for the trunk. I'm sure when I'm done, I'm going to add a border around it. Then the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some red and I'm going to put some ornaments on here. So I'm going to use all kinds of fabric here. They don't have to be Christmas fabrics. These two are kind of Christmassy. This is not Christmassy at all, but it looks kind of like a tree. I've got some batiks. I've got some with metallic. I've got some striped stuff here. I've got some grunge. This one is very interesting. So don't worry about trying to get all the same kind of fabric. We want to have a lot of different kinds of fabric so it will look very, very scrappy. Now you can cut all your scraps individually, or you can do like I'm doing. You can stack a few up and you can cut several at the same time. My scraps are cut up. These are the 2 3/8 inch squares, and these are all the 2-inch squares. Now we're going to leave these here for a moment and work with these guys. The first step is to draw a diagonal line on the back of these 7 squares, right from corner to corner. So I like to use just a faint pencil line, just like that. Now we're going to take the light squares that we marked and the dark squares that are the same size, and we put them right sides together. So I've got 2 right sides together, carefully line up the edges, and then we're going to stitch down each side of that line 1/4 inch away. Now my presser foot is 1/4 inch, so it makes it real easy to sew this very accurately. Now we're going to take each one of these and we're going to use our rotary cutter and we're going to cut right along that drawn line. And when we do that, we're now going to have 2 half square triangles. Now we want to iron these open. The easiest way to do this is to put the light fabric down on your cutting board and then open this up and kind of peel it back. We're just trying to make sure that we keep that seam straight and we don't stretch it so that it bows either way. Give it a little pressing, and then these guys hanging off the edge, these are called dog ears, and we just want to trim those off. And it's easiest if you just take a sharp pair of scissors and cut it like that. Now we're ready to lay out the tree. I've got my half square triangles, which are now 2 inches, And that's the same size as all these other blocks that we cut out. And we're going to start at the top of the tree. So we're going to put 2 triangles shaped like that. And the next 2, it's going to be moved over half a block. So I'm going to lay these out where they go first, and then I will trade colors around so that I have a nice blend of colors. Now we can start filling in the rest of the tree. So the first row up here gets 1 plain block. The next row is going to get 2 blocks. And I'm simply going to fill in the right number right now. I'm not going to worry at all about what's going where. So the third row is going to get 3 blocks. The fourth row is going to get 4 blocks. And I'll just keep filling in here. Now it's starting to look like a tree. So we need to put the trunk here. And this fabric's kind of stripy. It looks a little like bark. I think we'll use that there. And we can start filling in the light fabrics here. So I'm just going to use any of them. I'm not really going to look at this point to see what looks good where. I'm just going to lay them out. So that's the whole bottom row. Now we're going to add some on each side of the tree here. And you'll notice this row is longer than this row. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now we're going to put some up here. And again, I'm just going to put any old fabric here. I'm not going to worry about what's going where yet. This row is shorter. The next row is going to be longer. So we're alternating between long rows and short rows. The last row is just squares all the way across the top. There's 9 squares all the way across here. So that's all there is to laying this out. Now that I've got it laid out, I may trade some pieces around a little bit. I may think that it'll look a little better like that, but I'm not going to get too picky. It's supposed to be nice and scrappy. Once you've got it laid out the way you want it, you're going to want to pick up the first row. So I'm just going to pick these pieces up in order and then take them over to the sewing machine. So this is how the row was laid out over there. I'm going to relay it back out here so I don't get confused what order anything is in. And then the easiest thing to do is to pick up these 2 pieces, stitch them together, and then I'm just going to keep adding these blocks to the right. So that's the last block on that row. Now, here's one fun thing about this. It doesn't matter which way you press the seam allowances. So if they want to go to the right, you can make them go to the right. Sometimes you have one fabric that's a little bit thicker, like this is a little bit thinner than this guy. The seam wants to go that way, press it that way. If you come to one where you have dark, you can press towards the dark. So every row, it doesn't make any difference which way the seam gets pressed, but what I'm doing is finger pressing it flat. I am going to iron the row because it's pretty little, and I think this will make it lay nice and flat. Now I'm just going to put this right back where it came from, grab the next row, and do the exact same procedure. There's the top row. Now all we have to do, is sew the rows together. So if we start down here, right here, when we put these together, you can see that this row is longer than this one, and we want to center it up. You can just use the hope and sew method, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to eye it up and stitch down there. But if you want to be a little more scientific, what you're going to want to do is mark the middle of this fabric. The easiest way to do it is to fold that row in half, make a little crease right there, just press it with your fingernails, and you can kind of see that crease there, I think. And that is going to line up with this seam here. So then you can pin it and you can make sure that the centers line up, and we can stitch down here. So I've got my edges lined up, and I'm just going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam here. And none of the intersections line up. The only thing we're going to check is that crease right in the middle there, I don't know if you can see the line very well, is lined up with the center seam on the lower row here. And I'll show you what this looks like now. So when we open it up, it's going to look like that. So each one of these seams is in the middle, and I'm going to press the seam allowance towards most of those dark prints. So it's going to go this direction, and you can finger press it, and then we will take it to the ironing board and press it. So I'm going to keep adding rows, keep marking the middle, and add all the rows. As I add rows, it gets even easier to line everything up. All you have to do with this row is line it up with that edge. And then when we come to add the next row, it'll line up with this one. So I've got it all stitched and finger pressed, but we're going to want to iron it. Now this is one you probably want to iron from the back side first, because that way you can make sure your seam allowances are not flipping and they're going the way you want. And then once you've got it pretty flat, you can flip it over, and you can really make it look straight with your ironing. I don't know if you can see here, but this seam looks like it's leaning, and that's just because it needs to be coaxed back to straight and then ironed. There, now that looks a lot better. So eye it up, you can look at it, and then you can take it over to your cutting board, and then you can see against the grid lines if it really is straight. So let's see how straight I got. All right, in a perfect world, these would all line up on that line there, and they're pretty close. And then these over here would all line up on that line. Now, if yours is leaning way over, which can happen when you're stitching and ironing, you can take it back to the ironing board and get it to straighten up. But this is close enough for me, so I'm going to trim this side off. And I'm going to trim it off about 1/4 inch in from those short edges. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then it's going to look so much straighter and nicer. There. Now what I'm going to do is add a little flange and a border. So for the flange, that's a little folded piece of fabric. We're going to cut some 1-inch strips, 2 of them, from this red fabric. To make the flange, we're going to iron these in half, the long way. So I'm just going to fold it in half and then use my iron here. Add a little bit of steam as you go. And just fold and iron the whole strip. Now a flange is a really fun way to add just a little spark, a little accent to your patchwork. So I'm going to put the raw edge of the flange along the raw edge of my block here. So I've got this folded edge, and I'm just going to put it right here, and I'm going to stitch it really close to the edge, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to stitch right off the end. And then I'm just going to trim the flange right even with the edge of the block there. So there's one side. Now I'm just going to do the same thing on the other sides. So again, all the raw edges are lining up. and just use a very narrow seam allowance, about 1/8 of an inch. And again, when you come to the end here, just trim it off. And now we're going to start on this side, and then we'll do the last side. Again, just cut that last one even with the raw edge here. Now I'm ready to add a border. I have a couple of strips left over from a jelly roll. So these are 2.5 inch strips. If you have some extra ones, they make great borders. If you just want to cut from your scraps, 2.5 inches wide is how wide you want to do that. And I want a nice straight edge here, so I'm just going to fold it. And now I know I have a nice 90-degree cut there. And I'm again going to sew the border on, but I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam this time. So that 1/8 inch was just to get the flange anchored on here. Now we are actually going to have that flange right underneath our border. So I'm lining up all the raw edges and sewing with a careful 1/4 inch seam. Again, sew all the way off. And this time, to cut it straight, the easiest way is again to fold this so that that raw edge is, the folded edge is even with the raw edge here. And then line this up here, and then put your scissors in here, put them up against that fold, and cut. Now I'll show you what the flange looks like. That is what the flange is going to look like. It's just going to be a little decorative piece here, and it's going to be all the way around right inside the border. So I'm going to keep adding these borders so I've got it onto all 4 sides. All the borders are on now, and I'm going to iron them nice and flat. And it looks really good just like this. You could be finished right now, but I do think I want to try adding some little Christmas ornaments. For the ornaments, I'm going to just do some simple round Christmas balls. I'm going to have this in the pattern, some little circles. They're just circles, so if you don't want to print it off, you can just cut circles. I think I'll use the 1/2 inch size, because if I try to do a fancy ornament, it's so little we would probably lose the details. Now, because this is a wall hanging and I'm not planning on washing it, I'm just going to fuse the ornaments onto the tree. I'm going to use heat and bond, and I'm not even going to stitch them afterwards. I'm just going to fuse them on. Now, if you think you're going to wash this, you would want to fuse them on and then stitch around them. Heat and Bond Light, it's a fusible product that allows you to stick your applique pieces, which is what we're doing here, onto your projects. And it's got a paper backing. So if we open it up, we can put this over our pattern and we can draw right on the paper. So I'm just going to draw some circles here, and we will draw these on before we fuse it to our fabric. Now there's other brands. You don't have to use the Heat and Bond brand. You just want one that will fuse 2 fabrics together. So I'm just going to cut off this little bit that's drawn on, and this is the red I'm going to use. So you want to be sure to iron your fabric before you fuse anything to it. So make sure this is ironed, and I'm going to use steam right now, and then a dry iron. Make sure it's nice and dry. And then the glue side here is the side I'm going to put down, and I'm just going to put a medium iron right over this. And the directions, the fusibles all come with directions, so follow the directions for your product to see how to get that on there. Now all we have to do is cut on all of these lines. I'm going to cut this off first. Just carefully cut around these circles. So just try to make a nice smooth cut. Circles are always a challenge, but if you smooth all the way around, cut a little at a time, you can get a nice round circle. Once you've got them all cut out, you need to get this paper backing off. Now there's a little layer of glue there, and we'll get all these done, and then we will sprinkle them around on the tree. There, I actually made 3 different sizes of the Christmas ornaments. I didn't know which one I would like the best, but I think I'm going to use all 3 sizes. I've got some smalls, some mediums, and a couple big ones down here. I think that really is enhancing the tree quite a bit. Now, I didn't worry too much about where the ornaments are going. I just spread them around, and now I'm going to fuse them on, and this does not use steam. You just hold the iron on. My product says 6 seconds, so I'm just going to put this over all of them for 6 seconds, and they will be really securely on there, even without stitching. Again, if you're going to wash it, you're going to want to sew them on. But if you're just going to use this as a wall hanging, you can just fuse it just like that. The tree wall hanging is all done. This was really a lot of fun to make. I love all these different fabrics that are in the background. They're just a jumble of prints. I mean, I have some dots and metallics, I have some Civil War fabrics, but they're all nice and light, so they work great for the background. Also, because the rows were staggered, we've got all these different size pieces. You even have some little ones here because the flange is covering up part of the patchwork. Now this flange, it's a great way to get a little teeny look of a little teeny border, but it would be hard for me to stitch a border on that small accurately. But because you fold the flange, it's real easy to get your accurate 1/4 inch all the way around it. I quilted this just in the ditch along all these rows here. I put binding on it, and I didn't show all those steps, but I used the same method we use whenever we finish a quilt, and we have other videos that show you how to quilt your quilt and put your binding on. I included the templates for the different size ornaments in the pattern, but if you don't want to print it off, you can use some 1/2 inch circles and some 3/8 inch circles. Now, it turned out so nice, I actually don't think I'm going to hang it up. It looks like it will fit right on one of my end tables, and then I can put some little Christmas decorations around the edges, and that will just look really nice. Thanks for watching our video today on how to make the Christmas tree wall hanging. I hope that gives you lots of ideas on how to use your scraps up for a last-minute Christmas project. Now, we're going to have a giveaway. We have a rail fence. This is called a modern rail fence. It's made from a jelly roll. Nice, happy Christmas prints here. We did a video on how to make this. It's real easy to make it, but today you can win it. These are Moda prints. We've got this nice plaid binding on the edge, and it's very easy to enter the giveaway. Just click that link below that says giveaway, and you put in your name and your email address. And remember, we can send this to a winner anywhere in the world. So good luck. Now, if you like our videos and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would really help us out. Happy quilting!